Hi, this is Anita from Real Estate Crunch. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of renting versus buying a home or property. Buying a property is one of the most difficult, decisions that a lot of people will make. Whether or not you should rent or buy. Maybe difficult isn't exactly the word, but maybe it's one of the largest purchases that most people will make. So it's really important to be able to understand what are the pros and cons and to decide whether or not buying or renting is right for you. Let's talk first about the pros of renting. Well, first of all is flexibility. If you're not sure if you're going to stay in a place for a long amount of time, it may just be best for you to rent because you may not want to buy a property unless you know you're going to stay there. This will allow you to move easily. If you're new in an area, you're not sure what area you like or where you want to be, maybe renting might be best until you really decide where you want to settle down. Renting can be ideal for people who frequently have to relocate for work or personal reasons. Of course, renting has much lower upfront cost. It usually requires security deposit and the first month's rent, which is much less than a down payment on a house. There's no maintenance costs. The landlord's responsible for repairs and maintenance. That can save you time and money. You can have access to amenities. Many rentals include amenities like pools, gyms, security, which might be costly to maintain if you actually own the home. And it's a predictable expense that you pretty much know what you're going to pay every month. When you own a home, there can be things that happen, things break down in the home, which suddenly you have to pay for. The cons of renting is you're not building up your equity at all. Rent payments don't contribute to ownership, meaning you're not building wealth. You have limited control. You can't make significant changes to the property, such as renovation or upgrades. There could be rental increases which could be out of your control. The landlord may suddenly increase the rent, making it hard to predict long-term housing cost. And there could be no tax benefits. So let's talk now about the pros of buying. When you buy a house, you're building equity. Each mortgage payment builds equity, which can grow as the property value increases. There can be stability. Owning a home provides long-term stability and eliminates the risk of suddenly rent increases or suddenly having to move or suddenly the owner tells you that they're going to sell the property and so you have to suddenly move. It can give you creative freedom that you can renovate and customize your house however you want to. No one will tell you what color you can paint the walls or what else you can do inside your home for decoration. There are tax benefits for it that can help you with your tax liabilities. And there's potential for appreciation. Real estate often appreciates over time, which will increase your net worth. The cons of buying is there's a lot of upfront cost. It requires a down payment, closing costs, and other fees, which can be significant. You have maintenance responsibilities. Homeowners are responsible for all repairs, maintenance, and upkeep. There's less flexibility. Selling a home requires time and money, making it more challenging to relocate quickly. Market risks. Property values can go up, but they can also go down. So there's no guarantee that when you buy something, it's going to increase in value. And there can be ongoing costs, such as home ownership, property taxes, homeowners insurance, and potential HOA fees, especially if you have an HOA, which is a homeowners association. I've known people that have bought properties and they moved into a place and let's say the homeowner's fee was like $300 or something, which they consider to be manageable. Then all of a sudden, the homeowner association decides they're going to have a property company manage it, and the fee doubles or triples. And so that can happen too, especially if you have a homeowners association. Sometimes it can be better to rent if you have short-term living. You're not sure how long you're going to live there. You have an unstable income. Renting provides more flexibility if your income is uncertain or it fluctuates. If there's high housing costs, which in areas where home prices are incredibly high, renting might be more affordable. In fact, you might find that renting might even be less than you'd have to pay the bank. And if you value flexibility and you don't want to be tied down, you might find that renting is better for you. When it's better to buy, if you're looking for long-term living, you're looking for a place you can live long-term, you have a stable income, so it makes it easier to handle mortgage payments and other costs. You have low interest rates, And the interest rates are low, so you might say this is a good time for me to buy. And you want stability, so you want to be able to buy a home so you have the stability. So one of the things that you can do is you can calculate the break-even point. You can look at the upfront costs of buying. These would include things as a down payment, the closing costs and other associated fees, your monthly costs. Compare your monthly rent to your mortgage payment, your property taxes, insurance, all of the maintenance costs. Appreciation, look at the appreciation of it, and then look at your tax benefits. So, for example, let's say if your upfront cost was $25,000 and your monthly rent is $1,500 and your monthly ownership costs are $1,200 after taxes, the break-even point would be $25,000 times $1,500 minus $1,200, 83 months or 7 years, you'd break even. That's if you're going to buy a home. So you need to think about that and say, well, am I going to stay in this home for 7 years or 8 years or longer? That will be the time that I will be able to break even, that it wouldn't have made sense for me to rent versus buy. That means you'll need to own the home for at least 7 years to make buying the better financial choice. Now, a lot of people don't understand this, but this really is the basic calculations for it. We've written a blog post on this entitled The Pros and Cons of Renting versus Buying a Home or Property. We will put a link in the description below in case you're interested to read that. We'd like to thank you so much for listening to us. We hope you'll join with us. Subscribe to us. We'd love to have you be part of our community. Thank you.